eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is in polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
What the hell is going on, everybody? It is about to get weirder and weirder because we've got a special guest on the show today, someone who I'm absolutely stoked to talk to. I hope you guys are excited as well. Mr. Jordan Crowder, also known as Digi Jordan or Alive and Kicking. Here he is. Jordan, welcome to the show. How are you, man?
Hey, Josh. Doing good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. You are probably one of a small handful of creators that I used to watch and I've always enjoyed and I still watch, but who actually like inspired me to get moving with my own content. Because what I love about you is that, first of all, you talk about the weirdest stuff, and that just resonates with me because I'm a weird person myself. But also, you are just unapologetically yourself. I love how your videos are just like out in nature. Most of the time, you're just doing it like one take, which is impressive. You know, your knowledge is deep, and you just kind of hit those awesome, weird, deep videos on the fly. And I just think that's so great to have that sort of authenticity in this space. And yeah, I just really enjoy that. So thank you for being you, man. And thank you for being here.
I appreciate you. That means a lot.
No worries, man. I wanted to start off with kind of, I guess, where you began with your journey, because I know it's an interesting place. It is with a near-death experience. So I'm hoping you can maybe tell us what happened, what your experience was like, and kind of how it set you off on this journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm an open book. So I think about, everyone, not everyone, but I talk about my experiences because it helps other people. So you can ask me anything you want. And by the way, I love your intro. I love Terrence McKenna, and life is weird, man. You have to embrace the weird, and no one does it better than him. And we were in a weird time. So speaking of weird times, about 6 years ago, I had what I call a near-death experience, because it's the simplest way to explain it. And some people have very precise definitions of near-death experiences, and I don't know if mine, classifies, but whatever. For me, it was near-death. I was near-death for quite a while, and so I was a severe alcoholic, drug problems most of my life, and I was kind of an out-of-control train, and I just always felt like I was just, like on this train without a driver, headed off of a cliff, and I was powerless to stop it, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse, and building, and I felt something building. And then it was 2019, and it all came to a head. I hit rock bottom. I landed in the ICU. Before that, for the days leading up to it, I was the best. After the fact was I had like sanitized my consciousness out of my body, and I was watching this whole ordeal from a kind of a third person point of view. I felt like a security camera up in the corner watching everything. It was even kind of black and white, which I found out later that when you have an out of body experience, a lot of times it's black and white, which I don't know why, but that's what they taught me at the Monroe Institute. So, and I noticed that at the time, it was like wide angle and it was black and white. And I was just watching. I was watching myself laying in the bed dying, and I was conscious, but I knew that was my body, and I knew I was up here. And that was the first time that anything like that ever happened to me. And this went on for days, at least 2 days in that state. Come to find out later, I was going through like severe alcohol withdrawals, and my body was in shock. Anyways, at a certain point, I get rushed to the hospital by my amazing wife who saved my life. And when I'm in the hospital, they're telling me all the bad things. You're going to die, kid. It's bad, all that kind of stuff. And it's not what you want to hear, because it's like when you're on an airplane and like there's turbulence, and you look at like the stewardess and you're like, okay, if the stewardess is panicking, we're effed. And like I'm in the hospital and everyone's panicking, and I'm like, oh, this isn't good. And then there was this one crazy time, when I finally got up to the room, they admitted me, and they had pumped so much like tranquilizers and sedatives into me. I finally got, to a point where I was a little lucid. My consciousness for the first time felt like it kind of like zipped back in my body. And me and my wife just kind of took a collective breath, and we decided to take a selfie. And I only mention this because there's this picture that I have, and I have the picture, and there's this blue light that doesn't really make any sense. It's not coming from the equipment. It doesn't cast a shadow. It shouldn't be there. And I've looked at it a million times. I've run it through filters and everything, trying to figure out what the hell it is. It doesn't make any sense. And it's like this blue orb. And the significant thing, because I would normally just write that off. Who knows what it is? I'm hooked up to a million machines. I got tubes and stuff. I mean, they had me strapped down because I was a seizure risk and all this stuff. So it could have been anything. But at that same time, I had this like overwhelming, I don't know, like warmth, comfort kind of come over me that I was like, okay, I think I'm going to be okay. Because before that, I was just like, I'm toast. Like nothing was heading the right direction. It was spiraling out of control fast. And, and I had no reason to think that everything was going to be okay. And then at this point, I knew everything was going to be okay, to the point where I even like summoned a meeting with the head doctor of the floor. And like, I can't walk, I can't do anything. My organs are shutting down. My heart's about to burst. I mean, I'm toast. And I'm like, doc, I got to go home, And she's like, what are you talking about? You can't walk, And I was like, I have to go home. I have to heal. I can't heal here. I have work to do. And I felt this overwhelming like purpose. Like I have to get out of here because I have to do stuff. And it wasn't like I have to do work stuff or yard work or anything. It was like I didn't know at the time what I was supposed to do, but I felt like I was supposed to do something. And I felt like I had to get out of the hospital. And they wouldn't let me leave and everything. But anyways, the next day I finally sweet talked him into letting me leave, signed a bunch of papers, and I was out of there. And from that point forward, my whole life was different. I mean, everything was different. And I looked at the world different. I looked at life different. And fast forward to a little bit later, and I'm looking in the mirror one day, and I'm finally got my body healed. And we can go on a little bit later about how I used, Hemisync and some of the Monroe techniques and everything to do like this crazy quick healing on my organs. But I'm looking in the mirror one day, and first time in 40 years, I'm looking like deep in my eyes, like a weirdo on acid or something, just staring into my eyes. And I get these three, questions in my head. And they haven't left my head in 6 years. And it was, who am I, where am I, and why am I? And those three questions came in like a megaphone. And I was staring at myself, and I knew that the thing I was looking at was me, but it wasn't really me. I knew I was in there, but I knew this wasn't me. And I'd never had these thoughts before. I was very materialistic and was not raised religious or spiritual. I had no reason to question anything. And all of a sudden, I have this knowing that I'm more than my physical body. I know that my consciousness is separate than my body. I know that I'm in here, but this is not me. And all these things are flooding into me. And then, so it sets me on this. I have to find out, okay, what is reality? What am I? What is the soul? What is going on? I had so much catching up to do. And that sent me on this like dark night of the soul. I went into everything, Gnosticism, and every rabbit hole I went down seemed to have like a very negative ending. And then I got really depressed. And then I sort of had at a certain point through this process, and I'm skipping over a lot of stuff, but at a certain point I had this like just very positive sort of Kundalini like awakening, like this initiation type experience where like all of a sudden my dark night of the soul ended, and it was like freaking rainbows and butterflies. And like I just like from that point on, I know I'm a bit overly optimistic about most things now, but like I just started looking at everything differently. And it was just this wild roller coaster. And all this is happening during 2020. Everything's locked down. Luckily, we live in Florida, so we had a pretty easy go at it. But I'm sitting here like just trying to figure out what the hell is happening, and the whole world's shutting down, and everything's falling apart. And then I'm sitting here, and I feel like $1,000,000. Like I finally got my body healed, and I'm like I said, like walking on water here, and the whole world's shutting down. But then it just sent me on this like 6-year voyage of just trying to figure out what the hell. Who the hell are we? Where the hell are we? And why the hell are we here? And that's what I'm doing today.
Yeah, they're all such good questions, and they're all questions that I feel like I've been inherently drawn to myself as well. Do you think it was having having that out of body experience was like the catalyst to realizing that like your stream of consciousness is separate to like the meat suit that you inhabit on Earth?
Yeah, it's at the time you're not thinking about that stuff. It was after the fact when I was reflecting back on the whole experience between that and my moment in the bathroom. That bathroom, I was in the bathroom for like an hour staring in the mirror, and you're sort of trying to make sense of all of this and compare it to what you know about reality. And at the time, I thought you lived, you died, and then it's just blackness and it's over. That's it. Like I had, oh, did I lose you?
No, keep going. You're
Okay.
good.
And so, I was trying to figure out like what was going on, and yeah, that out of body experience at the time, I didn't even know it was an out of body experience. At the time, it's happening. You shift your awareness. Your awareness at that point shifted out of my body, and but then thinking back on it, I'm like, holy crap! Like like I remember even now I can see the images in my head of me in the bed below and kind of writhing around a little bit, and in pain, and I'm watching it, and not watching it like fearful, not watching it like scared, just watching it, and then I even just I wrote a book called Entrepreneurial Spirits, and in the book there's a part where I wrote this book right after, pretty soon after all this happened, so it was pretty fresh in my mind, and I use the descriptor that when my wife is driving me to the hospital, that my consciousness was outside the car flapping behind it like a cape in the wind. Like that's literally what it felt like. I was watching, like I was almost like, when they're making a movie and they'll have that like dolly beside the car outside, like with the camera. Like I was watching me in the car driving down the street to the hospital, but not from my point of view, from an outside point of view. And it was like my consciousness was just with me the whole time. It was never more than a few feet away. But I got this impression that I had just sanitized it. I'd made my body so inhospitable in such a I was in so much pain. I had pancreatitis, and like basically my pain was on like a 10 out of 10, like it was, my body was not a good place to be. So I don't blame my consciousness at all for saying, like, hey, y'all have fun down
Get
there.
me out of here.
I'm gonna chill up here for a bit and watch in bird's eye view. And that was the impression I got, that it was there. It was still, you're always tethered, you're always connected. But it just didn't want to be in the body. It was too traumatic, and there was no reason for it to be. And I just had that. It was the eeriest thing. And then as I'm getting to the hospital, and as they're doing stuff to me, giving me drugs and stuff, it felt like it was kind of coming back in, like it was just sort of like squeezing back in, until there was that one moment where me and Sarah took that picture of ourselves, and that was the first time where it really felt like I was like back in,
Yeah.
And it's a weird ass feeling, and it's really hard to rationalize, and it sends you scrambling for answers.
Yeah, a lot of people describe their out of body experiences and like coming back into their body the same way. And I've only ever had one, and it was spontaneous. Like this is probably, I want to say, probably around 10 years ago now. And this is when I sort of just started getting into meditating, and I would just sort of meditate before bed. And I did that, and as far as I'm aware, I fell asleep, and it was almost like in the middle of my dream or somewhere in the night, where I just remember like literally that feeling of like floating up out of your body and then seeing myself in my bed, and the shock of that sight and that feeling of being like, whoa. As soon as I felt that like panic, it was like straight back in, like a vacuum. And I remember waking up the next day, and I was just like, to my girlfriend at the time, like, I don't know what the hell just happened to me, but like some weird shit happened last night. And it's never happened since though. But let's talk about how the Monroe Institute, and I guess Hemisync in general, helped you with that journey, because you've done a retreat there. Is that right? You've been to the Monroe Institute?
Yeah,
What was that like?
it was incredible. It was incredible. Very, a very unlikely scenario of how I ended up there. I'll tell you how I got introduced to them, because it has to do with
could you actually, sorry to cut you off, could you maybe
Yeah.
just explain what it is, the
Oh,
Monroe
yeah, sure.
Institute first, and then go into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Monroe Institute is essentially, it's like a consciousness research institute. I don't really know how to describe it, because they do so many different things, but it started off by this guy named Robert Monroe, who was a very successful sound engineer, owned a bunch of radio stations back in the like 1950s. And he was experimenting with sound, because radio was transitioning to TV, and he didn't really like TV, and he was trying to figure out a way to like take sound to the next level. And back then people were using sound in their sleep to do things. Like if you remember a long time ago, they had those tapes like learn Spanish in your sleep and quit smoking in your sleep and stuff like that. So he was a sound engineer. He had all these sound engineers and equipment and, loads of money, very successful, and all these resources. So he was in the lab, and he was determined to find the best mix and match of tones and sounds and stuff like that to get you in this like hypnotic state, to where they could make these tapes and stuff for people to learn things in their sleep. And in the process of doing this, making himself like a guinea pig and experimenting with all this stuff, he discovered that our body is like a focusing instrument for consciousness, and it focuses it in. It like streams it in, like a TV streams Netflix, or like a radio, uses an antenna to capture a radio signal. And the part that brings your consciousness in and kind of puts a cap on it and keeps it in your body, well, he broke that. And he's like spontaneous out of body experiences, and he would just float out of his body, and it was freaking him out. So he thought he was dying, went to all these doctors, didn't know what was going on. This is the 1950s. No one knows anything about this stuff back then. That's why he's a pioneer in all this. So he finds out that he's having these out of body experiences. And so then he sets out on a mission to like try to learn how to induce them and control them. And then as he's doing that, he's like, oh man, I have this amazing ability to leave my body and move around. So he starts moving around the world, and he starts moving around the universe, and then he starts moving around time and dimensions because he has this ability. And then he starts teaching other people to do it too. And then they put together the Monroe Institute to kind of refine this method and they created the gateway tapes, which are different tapes, different tones and binaural beats that put you in different brainwave states and different altered states of consciousness. So you can explore different dimensions and different altered states in a very precise way, as opposed to taking some sort of a hallucinogen and just kicking open a door and being like, I'm here, what's up? This is a very like fine-tuned way to do specific things in the astral. And it's incredible. And, they have kind of a notorious history because this is during the Cold War. So, the CIA came knocking and we're basically like, hey, we heard the Russians are doing all sorts of crazy remote viewing stuff and they have psychic spies and we don't have any of this stuff. And Robert Monroe and the Monroe Institute was kind of the leaders in that area. So they did team up and they did a bunch of work. And that's where, all the big names, Hal Puthoff, Russell Targ, all those people, Joe McMonagle, all those people learned like a lot of their kind of psi abilities and secret spy kind of abilities and everything from the Monroe Institute and their teachings, because they were at the forefront of all this back then. And but they do everything today. It's an amazing place. I went there. They're the warmest, nicest people. The stuff they do is still cutting edge and still groundbreaking, and it is the best. It's like Hogwarts and Jedi school, wrapped up. I mean, it is just an amazing place. And it does all sorts of things. Like I'll tell you, so like when I first got out of the hospital, my blood pressure was 200 over 100. And basically they were telling me, they're like, when I went to the doctor, they're like, dude, you're going to stroke out right here. They're like, we don't even know how you're still alive. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. I still don't really know what exactly was going on. But they gave me all these drugs. Nothing was working. I was dieting, exercising, nothing to get my blood pressure down. So they said, you got to meditate. And my doctor told me this. You're screwed when you've gone down the whole list of things and your doctor's like, meditate. So I'm like hyper. I'm like, dude, I can't meditate. I'm toast if this is what's going to save me. So I'm trying everything. I tried transcendental meditation. I didn't like it. I tried all the different things. I didn't like any of them. So I'm like Googling. At this point, the world shut down because of COVID. And I'm Googling and I'm like, okay, what do crazy hyper people do to meditate, right? There has to be some sort of a thing out there, some hack, some trick. And I find some forum and they're talking about Hemisync. And one of the beauties of Hemisync is that using sound, binaural beats, so they essentially figured out that your brain has different brainwave states that hum along at particular frequencies. So say like a theta brainwave state is good for meditation, and that's between like 4 and 8 hertz. Well, you can't just play a 4 to 8 hertz sound. You can't play like a 6 hertz sound because it's inaudible. You won't hear it. So what they figured out is something called a binaural beat, where if you play, let's say you want to get to a 6 hertz, you want your brain to hum along at 6 hertz, you put 100 hertz in one ear and like say 106 in the other ear, and then your brain splits the difference, kind of like a tuning fork, and then your brain will actually hum along at 6 hertz. This is called a binaural beat, and it's called brain entrainment. It's how you can get your brain to get in these brainwave states super easy. So whereas like it would take like meditation, like, you'd have to meditate for like, years to get to this point where you can control your brain like that. You can just put on these headphones and within minutes, your brain is just entrained like a tuning fork to this frequency. And it blew my mind. So I immediately started doing it and I'm able to meditate. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm freaking meditating. Like, so I'm for the first time in my life, I'm sitting in a room. I put a sleeping mask on. I'm controlling my thoughts. I'm controlling my emotions. I'm visualizing my blood pressure going down, and it does. And I'm doing the blood pressure readings. And I'm like, oh my God. And then, so once I discovered that, I was like, this is crazy. It changed my life, because then I find all this other stuff. I'm like, who made this stuff and what's the story? So I read all of Robert Monroe's books and they blow my mind. They change my life. They teach me about all the different dimensions and extraterrestrials and all the amazing stuff out there. And then I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. I didn't realize that these tapes that I'm using for meditation are actually meant for like astral travel, and they're meant for like altering your states of consciousness. So as I'm sitting there on my couch 2 or 3 times a day doing my meditations to lower my blood pressure, I'm having like out of body experiences. I'm astral traveling. I'm freaking having like face-to-face encounters with like non-human intelligences. I'm having the weirdest freaking experiences of my life, and I don't know why. I'm just like, this is tripping me out. And as the more I learn, I'm like, oh, it's because these aren't like normal meditations. These are made specifically for these purposes. And so then I dive in more and I find all these old workbooks from the original Monroe Institute. and they teach you how to do something called a energy bar tool, where you can essentially remote view into your body, and you can do something called patterning, which is their version of manifestation. You can change things, like you can use your thoughts and intention to change physical matter reality. So I'm doing all this stuff. I'm learning all these things, and it's blowing my mind. I go back to the doctor, and the same doctor who told me I was going to stroke out on the table before literally hugs me and is crying, because she said that they've never seen anybody have such dramatic turnaround. Like my blood results, my test results came back, and they're like, we don't even know how you did this. They're like, we don't know how you didn't die before, because my stuff was so bad. And they're like, well, we don't know how it's so good now, because there hasn't been enough time lapse. And I didn't want to tell her all the weird stuff I was doing. So I'm just like, diet and exercise. But I knew it was more than that. I knew it was all of these things I was doing. And because the results were just so crazy, they don't make any sense. So that had me a true believer. I knew all this stuff worked. It saved my life. It changed my life. And then I'll put a bow on the story. The craziest thing happened. So I'm patterning, I'm manifesting, going to the Monroe Institute. It's a kind of an expensive place to go to. It's in Virginia. You have to go for 6 or 7 days. It's a whole thing. And I'm in Florida at the time. I didn't have a lot of money, and everything was shut down because of COVID. And I'm going through all my patterning. I'm visualizing. I'm like, one day I'm going there. One day we're going. Doing the whole thing. And what I learned with manifestation is focus on the why and the what, and don't worry about the how. Let the universe take care of the how. So one day I'm sitting at home, I get an email from the Monroe Institute. It's not some junk email or some spam email. It's, hey Jordan, we're putting together our first ever creator gateway, and you've been selected as one of our favorite creators, and all expense paid trip to the Monroe Institute. And I was like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, this is nuts.
Wow.
So I ended up going there on some sort of like a VIP red carpet. I mean, they did the whole thing, and I was there with all these amazing people, Ryan Bledsoe and Chris Ramsey and Sean Webb, and just the list goes on. And it was like the craziest week of my life. And that just happened in the most improbable way, just to kind of cap off this just insano period that I was in.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So was that the first time you went there? That was your first experience there? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, I've only been
And
that
what
one
was it
time.
like? What was it like connecting with the other creators in a space like that? Did that kind of really pull you guys together? You make some good friendships?
Yeah, it's amazing. So like next month is the Psy Games in Virginia, and I'm going to be a commentator at that. And Hakeem, who is the one throwing the Psy Games, was at the Monroe retreat, and we became good friends there. And a lot of us are going to be at the Psy Games. A lot of the people that were there. So we have this like WhatsApp group, and we're always chatting and everything. And we're like lifelong friends from it was such a wild week. I mean, the bonding that we did there. I mean, doing the crazy intensive things that we did there. We had multiple like alien type encounters. We had multiple paranormal events that happened that week. It was a wild week, and it was nuts, especially to be there with such cool people.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I'm going to have to pull you there and say, you're going to have to tell me about these alien encounters, because you mentioned it first when you said you were just getting used to. Well, actually, first, let me just ask you quickly. When you started with the Gateway tapes and meditation in general, how long are you meditating for? Like, first 5-10 times, how long are you meditating for?
To be totally honest with you, when I first started, I set the most low bar, realistic goals. I was like, if I can meditate for 1 minute, that was my goal. Because to me, meditation seems so insane. And then it became, I got so habitual at doing it. The tapes are about 45 minutes each. That's a kind of a typical one. So that's about how long I would do it. But at the beginning, my advice to anyone starting off, it doesn't really matter how long. It's all about just the whole reason meditation works is we have all these inputs, right? Sensory data inputs, right? So our eyes, we see, we hear, we touch, we feel, we smell, we taste, and our body is constantly bombarded with information all day, every day. And that information turns into noise at a certain point. It's just so much data that we can't compute it all, and that's just noise. That's why everybody's head is full of noise. And we're just like, ah. So what meditation does is at a certain point, your nervous system starts to like power down all those sensory inputs. Like, so you start your senses, your sight, your eyes are closed, so you're not seeing anything. Your ears, you stop listening out there, and they sort of power down. Your hands are still, you're not touching anything, you're not tasting anything. So you don't have any input coming in. And if you do that long enough for a few minutes, then your awareness, your conscious awareness, which is usually out here, like you're like looking at stuff. Oh, squirrel, there's my cat, whatever. Um, it starts to turn inwards, and you start to think, okay, thoughts. Okay, I'm gonna think about my thoughts, right? And then what you do is you start to get good at like having a thought, being aware of that thought and then just letting that thought go, kind of like a car on a highway. Like you wouldn't jump out in front of the car. You just see the car, there it goes. Peace out, car. Like you don't care. You don't stop the car. So then you get like that with your thoughts. You just let them come, you let them go. Even crazy ass thoughts. We all have crazy ass thoughts. So if a crazy ass thought comes in your head, oh, that's fucking crazy. All right, let it go. Like you don't engage it. And then if you do that enough time, they all just sort of float away. And then you're just left in this space, this just space, this void. And when that happens, it's freaking beautiful. And then when you get to that point, you stop worrying about time. You're not focused on how long has it been, what's my timer say, or anything like that. You're there. And it could be 5 hours or 5 minutes. It doesn't matter. At that point, you've kind of control alt deleted your nervous system. You've reset everything, and you've taken a break. And that does wonders for your body and for your mentality. So if you can hold that for 5 minutes, awesome. If you can hold it for 30 minutes or an hour, super duper awesome. But for me at the beginning, it was very low bar, and then it just kept, going. And now it's really no deal to meditate for as long as I want. But, usually about 45 minutes is, I find, pretty like the maximum for me.
And do you find that you are able to reach that point of just void a lot quicker with now that you practice it? You can slip into that a lot quicker versus when you were sort of learning the practice?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It becomes like kind of like training wheels. Like you need it at first, you need all the tools and everything and tricks, and you have your habits and everything. And then after a while you don't need any of that stuff. And now, like the reason I do my walk and talks in the forest and walking on the beach and everything is just because that's like my meditation now. I don't even meditate as much anymore. Like I find myself just out in nature. Like I'll put on Hemisync on my headphones when I'm out doing my runs and stuff. And I'm meditating. Like I meditate anytime I'm not talking or really doing anything. Like I find I'm not really always here. You know what I mean? I'm floating somewhere in between here and there. I'm here when I need to be here. When I'm not, when I don't need to be here, I'm somewhere else. And that's, to me, that's meditation.
Interesting. All right. Well, so when you're in that void, you said earlier you said you had face-to-face alien encounters. So when you say that, I think you're visualizing, you can actually see something. So explain to me what happened, what that's about, and also if you can try and explain how you're seeing it. Like, how do these things look? Because you're obviously seeing it with your mind's eye. So for someone who's maybe never meditated or maybe can't visualize things, because I've just learned recently that there are people who can't even visualize, which is crazy to me, but explain like how you see it and kind of what that process was like encountering like another intelligence.
Yeah. I will to that point about the not seeing things. I don't visualize very well. So like say I was to close my eyes right now and you were to tell me to visualize like a red car or something, I would have trouble doing that. But
Wow.
what's really cool, yeah. Like I sense it and stuff. When I close my eyes, I see crazy like kaleidoscope sacred geometry stuff. Like it's all
When you're meditating, you mean, or
anytime
anytime?
I close my eyes. Yeah. Anytime I
Wow.
close my eyes. A
Okay.
lot of times, even when they're open, if I look at a solid surface, like I'm looking at my black chair over here and I see all sorts of sacred geometry designs. So I see when I close my eyes are very, very swirly and colorful and bright. So I see colors and I see designs and stuff, but I don't see pictures. Like I can't force myself to visualize something. And and I don't know why it's always been that way. So, but something interesting happens whenever I meditate. When I get about, I don't know, 5 minutes in or so, I hit this tipping point, and it usually for me, anyways, and everyone's different. So I'll start to see, like as I'm seeing the designs, I'll see like a hole form, and it usually looks like it'll be a black hole. And even if the background's black, it's blacker. It's like Fanta black,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll be this black hole that will have like kind of clouds around it, like dark clouds, and it will expand, and I'll use my awareness and I'll go into the hole, and as I consciously move into the hole, it gets bigger, and when it goes around me, then I see all sorts of stuff. It's purely visual at that point. But there's like
Mm-hmm.
a tipping point where I go into that hole. So if somebody gets frustrated that they can't visualize, because that's how I am, maybe try like meditating a little bit first, 5-10 minutes, and see if you can get to this certain point where things kind of switch over. I don't know. For me, that happens. And then I see things so vivid, it's crazy. Like I used to see faces, and I have a crazy story if you have a minute, but I'll make it
Go
quick.
ahead.
But so I used to see faces when I would do Hemisync. I would always see these faces. So when I got to that point, I'd go through the hole, and then there would be a face on the other side of it, just a freaking face. And imagine like you're sitting on a park bench, and there's a person next to you. You're like that close, and you just look over, and there's a face there. And I would see like so much detail on them, freckles, and I could see their eye color. They'd always be talking, but they wouldn't say anything. Like no words would come out. But it's like I'm in the middle of a conversation with this person. And that happened almost every time. And it used to kind of freak me out. And then it used to annoy me because I wanted to like do fun stuff. I'm like, who the hell are these people? And they were so vivid, and I couldn't like get rid of it. I was like, I was stuck in a conversation with them. So when I was at the Monroe Institute on day one, we were doing this exercise, and what happened to me in that booth, we're in this like sensory deprivation booth, made me realize why people think that there's a hell. Like why, like if somebody went to this and didn't know any better, they would think they were in hell. So what happened for me, so I'm in meditation, we're in Hemisync, so you kind of go somewhere else. And I see this face, and everything around me is like black with a little red tint to it. And it's very dramatic. And this face comes at me right in front of me and just staring me in the face. And just a kind of a head floating, no body or anything. And I could feel the emotion from this face. I could feel the emotion, the energy from this face. And it was very negative, very intense, I guess you'd say. And it goes through me, right through me. And I was like, whoa, that was nuts. My first exercise in Monroe too. And then another one comes right in front of me, goes through me. Okay, this is getting weird. And then I'm moving forward. I could feel myself moving forward, and face. And then there's a sea of faces. I'm talking thousands to millions of these faces, and they're moving through me. And every single one that goes through me, I'm feeling their emotion. I'm feeling their intensity. And it's almost like there's like yells and screams. And it's so over and over. And like I'm sweating. And I wanted to sort of burst out of the booth, but like I had this like feeling that, keep going. Like I had a feeling that there was an end in sight, like it was going to end. And so anyways, long story short, I did that for a while. It was freaking crazy. And then after all the faces and everything, and then my eyes are closed, I have my mask on, I have my headphones on, I'm in this blacked out booth, right? The Monroe Institute at the top of the freaking mountain. I'm in Virginia. I don't know where I just got there. I'm doing this thing, and I'm all these faces, and I'm totally locked in because I'm in this other like dimension at this point. Anyways, that happens, and then they're all gone. All done. No more faces. And I was just freaking exhausted. I was like, what the hell was that, man? So then we get out of the booth, and we go back to the room, and we do a debrief after every mission, after every exercise. And I go back and I tell the instructors, what happened. And they were very much like, yeah, that's something that happens. So they're not going to say it's like normal or typical or anything, but they had heard, especially my main instructor, Archie, had heard of that happening. And the way he explained it to me, it's so fascinating. Robert Monroe talks about something called an M-band radiation field, which is this field around Earth, which is all the consciousnesses that are either, if you're inebriated, if you're sleeping, if you're dead and you're locked into your physical body, what we call ghost, any of the consciousnesses that are kind of stuck between this physical layer and the spirit layer, that's this M-band radiation field. And it's very chaotic, very hectic, and there's millions, if not billions, of consciousnesses in there. And it sort of has it puts like a cap kind of around our planet as far as our consciousness goes. And it's very hard to penetrate that. And what I learned was that once you get past that, it's like when you're playing a video game and you make it past a boss and there's a checkpoint, and then you keep going and then you die. You don't have to go back to the beginning, go back to the checkpoint. So I made it to all those faces, and it was freaking nuts. And then every time I would drop in after that, I would drop in on the other side. And the other side is like this void. It's this like kind of quiet, peaceful void. And then now when I meditate at home and stuff, I used to see the faces all the time. I haven't seen one since that day, not one. And I used to see them every time. It was really weird. And so it's almost like I made it to a checkpoint, So now when I drop in past that checkpoint. And now you're more able to to reach higher places and to go higher places. You don't have to go through that crowd anymore and through that energy field. And that was my experience with the faces and everything, and it was freaking nuts. So
Yeah, dude, that's wild. It actually kind of sounds like and I'm not like a religious scholar by any means, but like in Catholicism they talk about purgatory, that there are like this place you kind of go when you're sort of halfway between fully going to the other side and here on earth. So it's interesting, and I'm always fascinated by how so many different walks of life, be it like culturally or like a religious view, seem to be saying a lot of the same things, but they're all kind of telling the story through their own cultural lens or whatever framework was built on, wherever they come from. So that's really interesting. What made you think that they were? Because you used the word alien earlier. Was it that experience that felt alien, or was
no,
it
those were
something else?
definitely human.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had several that I would just call non-human intelligence. And what I realized at the Monroe Institute and my like subsequent research and everything is that essentially the universe, the cosmos, whatever you want to call it, is full of intelligences. And most of them are ancient, and most of them are conscious. They're sentient, they're aware. Most of them have never been human. Most of them don't know what a human is. Most of them don't give a shit about humans. But they're there. And the further you go out, the more you're going to run into. It's like if you go to the jungle, if you go far enough in the jungle, you're going to see some weird stuff, and a lot of the stuff you see isn't going to know who you are or care who you are. And that's sort of how it is in the astral. The deeper you go, you're going to run into some stuff. And these things are intelligent, they're organized systems of intelligence. But they're not going to be aliens. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like a little gray in a UFO. Those exist, but you don't really run into those as much as you run into disintelligences. And so like one specific time, this is a weird story too. I love it. You played that intro, and the whole time I'm watching that intro, I'm like, we're about to get freaking weird.
Yeah, that's right.
But, so this one time, so there's different focus levels of the Monroe Institute, and the different focus levels are different tones, and they take you to different altered states of consciousness. And they've been able to figure out that in specific altered states, you have specific accesses to specific dimensions and stuff, right? There's definitely an organization to the non-physical world. And so there's this one in particular, it's called Focus 21. And Focus 21 is what's called the bridge. And it's the bridge between the physical and non-physical. And it's a place where you can go, and it's the perfect place if you want to see a past loved one, for example. There's all sorts of reasons to go to the bridge, but that's one of the main reasons people go there. And my mom passed not too long ago. And it's been a while now, I guess. But anyways, so I immediately was like, oh, I want to go see my mom. And so when I went to the bridge, and I'm in Focus 21, and I'm, at this point, we're several days into our training, so I'm really good at what I'm doing, and I'm out there. And I'm expecting to see my mom, my Earth mom, right? And instead, the only way I can describe it is an alien. It's a presence. It has a form, like a humanoid type form, but it's more like wireframe kind of. And it basically told me in a very compassionate way that, like in my current life, I don't have a dad. I don't have a mom. I live in Florida with my amazing wife and my daughters, but I don't have any other family here, period. Like I don't have really any contact with my family. And so when I'm on this kind of mission to see my mom in the astral, I was stopped by this entity and told that basically they were my star family, and that my life was constructed this way on purpose because at a certain point I was supposed to shed, that was their words, shed my human family and then reconnect with my star family. And, the assumption was this lady, it was a female presence, was part of my star family, and that I was guided to sort of not try to reconnect with my human family, that, that's not what I was supposed to be doing right now. So anyways, it was in a very compassionate way and everything. And you have free will. Like I could have done whatever I wanted, but that was how I was guided, and that presence was what we would call non-human intelligence, right? It even had like an alien feel to it, but it's not like zipping around an old spaceship. You know what I mean? Like that's just not how it works. That's what people want.
Yes.
That's what you're hoping you see, but that's just not. And I think even when people see that, a lot of times that's your own consciousness putting that layer, that filter over it to kind of personify the energy. But
for sure.
But yes, that was just one example of like an obvious non-human intelligence that I'm interacting with face to face, asking questions, communicating normally, all telepathically. You're not talking, but and that stuff happens all the time. Like I've had many of those experiences like that.
For sure. I'll just ask quickly. This is a question for you from Rambro. Wants to know if you've ever reached Focus 25 and see those who are bewitched, asleep, or out of mind. I found it hard to get there. Can you
Haven't
see
been to
these comments on the screen, by the way?
Yeah, I do say that. That's super
Yeah,
cool.
cool. Yeah.
No, Rambro, and I like that name. I have not been to Focus 25. There's the focuses keep going. When I was hacking my way through all the stuff, I found out I was doing them all out of order. So I was having some experiences that were really wild, and I was in some levels that I probably shouldn't have been because I didn't know what I was doing. But I haven't been to 25 specifically. The cool thing is there's I think it's Focus 37 is the gathering place. And there's actually a gathering of, non-human intelligences, like even spaceships around Earth that you can access through this one level. But there is a progression, and I haven't progressed high enough. It's kind of like getting a black belt. It's like you can't just go from white belt to black belt. You have to go through the ranks. So I'm not there yet. But yeah, they have it all mapped out. So no, I haven't been to that one specifically, but it's a process. I hope to go to all of them before I'm done.
For sure. So I know you also talk a lot about simulation theory, and I'm interested to hear. I want to know kind of what you think, like what your theory is, and I guess if you have a kind of a universal theory. Obviously, you've got experience projecting your consciousness, like astral projection, meditation. You've had experience with what feels like a non-human intelligence. So how do you think that stuff fits into the idea that this is like a simulation? So do you want to tell us about your theory and maybe how it all fits together?
Yeah. I've done a lot of thinking on this because this is what my mission has been over the last, 5 years or so, is to figure out, one of my three questions is where are we? And my conclusion, I guess, it's a working hypothesis. I don't ever want to come across as I have the answers. This is what I've learned, and this is where my thoughts are on everything right now, is that I call it a simulator as opposed to simulation. The simulation theory answered a lot of questions for me. I dove in deep with Donald Hoffman and Tom Campbell. Tom Campbell's a graduate. He was one of the OGs of the Monroe Institute. He has something called My Big Theory of Everything, and he has postulated and backed it up with a lot of quantum physics that this is a virtual reality, and that's my impression as well. So the reason I call it a simulator as opposed to a simulation is that a simulation, the agent inside of a simulation, doesn't really have any bearing on the outcome. You're just sort of along for the ride. A simulator, think about how a pilot uses a flight simulator to become a better pilot. It's something where you have free will, where you voluntarily enter into it, and it's for training purposes. And that's how I see Earth, is like a training ground for soul. So our consciousness, which is non-physical, uses the body as a physical avatar to come in and experience this world. And you have the memory wipe so that you're fully immersed. You have all these hardships and all these adversities, and you're learning and growing as you're going through all the challenges. And it's virtual in the sense that nothing's real. And we're even proving that everything is just organized energy. So it's virtual in the sense that it is generated. It's basically rendered by what's called a conscious observer. So we are that conscious observer. We're rendering reality. And John Archibald Wheeler, my favorite physicist, he coined the term "it from bit" and participatory universe, and he proved that this is a participatory universe, that each person is rendering their own version of the universe. So,
and this is kind of like the essence of the double slit experiment, right? Mm-hmm. That it something does not exist until it's observed.
Yeah. That it exists in a state of probability. It
could be anything.
Yeah, it's a probability distribution field. So it'll actually be a subset of probabilities. It can't be anything. It can only be the selected probabilities. It'll be like a set of probabilities, and each probability will have a possibility assigned to it. And when it's measured, usually by a conscious observer, it collapses. That's the collapse of the wave function. When it collapses down, it has to select. And usually it's like a lottery. It'll select the probability that has the highest possibility of being selected. And so that's how I teach people to meditate or to manifest, is actually just trying to increase the odds of the path that you're wanting to take being selected. when it collapses. Anyways, they've been able to prove with the double slit, and then even more advanced than that, the delayed choice double slit proves that even our past has not really fully been rendered until it has to be, until it is forced to pick a position. Because up until then, it's just probabilities. So everything exists in a wave, and every wave is nothing but a probability distribution field. And then once it's observed, it has to snap into place. Okay, so that's how reality is rendered, and that's why I use the analogy of that we are a VR headset, because that's all data. Like everything in the universe is just data. It's just information, and that information has to at some point be rendered, and that's what we do. we're the VR headset that our consciousness puts on to render that data, and it's done for a very specific purpose. When you're in the non-physical, if the entire point of reality, which I believe it is for source to get to know itself. So say source, smashes itself into a million pieces. All those pieces are individual souls, and they go out there in the universe and they're having experiences. And then source is learning vicariously through those experiences. Well, at a certain point, those experiences aren't going to be very rich anymore. They've already done everything they can do. When you're in the spirit, which you'll realize whenever you go there, everything's telepathic, and it's hard to. There's a cap on what you can really learn, what you can really do. So you come into places like Earth that have all these like rigid rules. You come in, you have the memory wipe. You come into a body that's very restricted. You're confused. You don't know what the hell's going on. You don't know why you're here. You have to find purpose. You have to find resources and food and shelter and all this stuff. And you think that this is everything. You think when you die, that's it, and it's very intense, and everything's really intense. And the choices you make here and the experiences you have here are so freaking rich, and it's feeding that data back up to your higher self, which is your higher self's like the collection of all of your lifetimes and all your memories and everything. That's you. That's the real you. So it's feeding that up, and then source is getting all that too. And there's just a stream of information. So that's the purpose of existence, and that's the purpose of having these physical simulators like Earth. It's just a more intense. It's like CrossFit for your consciousness. It's more resistance. It's more intense. So the learning, the amount of like leveling up your consciousness does is so rapid. That's why people want to come. That's why souls want to come to Earth, and it's a very intense learning simulator. So it's like going to military school. So that's what Earth is. So Earth is like a simulator. It's like a flight, simulator for
I
a
like
pilot.
that.
Yeah, and so, but it's not a simulation, but it is virtual in the sense that this is not base level reality. Base level reality is spirit. That's why when people have near death experiences and stuff like that, they say it's more real than home. They don't want to come back. It's this is not home. This is temporary, but it's very important. I don't want to downplay it like it's a game or it's unimportant. It's just not base level reality, and so it's simulated in an essence.
I like that. CrossFit for your consciousness. That's a awesome analogy. You do always hear that with people who have these near death experiences, that not only do they feel overwhelmed with like this sense of like peace and love and joy, but it's almost like they get this feeling of like they remember. They're like, that's right. I was just here. I was just doing this. I was just here learning. I forgot.
Yeah.
This is just a temporary experience, which is such a crazy thing to have so many people independently say. And at the risk of sounding like Joe Rogan, who actually followed you the other day, I saw. It's kind of wild. Congrats. That's super cool. Without sounding like Joe Rogan, have you ever done DMT?
No, I haven't.
No.
No, I've done lots of other psychedelics, but I have not done that. So I put a steel gate down when I got sober 6 years ago. So I've been completely sober, not a drop of anything in 6 years. I don't even smoke bud, nothing. And I kind of had to do that for my own well-being because I was in such bad shape. And I lived such a crazy party life for the first 40 years. I felt, okay, been there, done that. But in my first 40 years, DMT was not something that was really ever offered to me or available. It wasn't like it kind of came onto the scene, it seemed, right when I stopped my stuff. So I guarantee you, back in the day, I would have done the crap out of it. And I kind of regret that I didn't squeeze that in before the finish line. But no, I have not done it.
Yeah, no, that's all good. I only asked because it's, again, you get those thousands of independent stories that are all saying they're going to this place and they're talking to these entities that are kind of imparting lessons on them. Things like they come out of these trips with kind of like a different perspective on themselves and like their behavior, how they're going through this consciousness simulator. But interestingly, sometimes people kind of come out of it with like a feeling of being told off, like, stop, this isn't a toy. Stop, like, you don't need to be here anymore. Stop playing with it. It's I've never done DMT either.
It's
It's
super
I wouldn't say
fascinating.
it's extremely fascinating. I wouldn't say I wouldn't do it. I think I'm too intrigued by it to like say hard out no. But it is somewhat like, it's a little bit intimidating as well, because it's like, do I need my whole worldview like completely flipped upside down?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I do just yet.
So it's incredibly fascinating because people are going to an objective place. It's very clear, the more you study it, that they're going somewhere, that these aren't hallucinations or visualizations. They're going somewhere. And they're doing like these extended drip, like intravenous experiments now with
Yeah.
it, where people are staying in there longer. And it's really fascinating because like how I told you before, the universe is full of intelligences. Most of them are ancient, most of them are conscious, and most of them either don't know what humans are or don't really care or care for us. There's kind of an animosity. And you hear from a lot of these people, their experience with the DMT, the machine elves and the entities in the DMT land, a lot of times are negative in the sense that the entities don't seem to particularly care for us. Like they're not real nurturing and loving and stuff. A lot of times they're annoyed. They're like, "What are you doing here again? Get out of here." So that's kind of you have to realize that once you start journeying out there, they're not always gonna they're not like mean or malevolent or anything. They're doing their own thing. They're in their own world, and here you come, like a drunk party kid coming in, like, "Oh, I'm here," and they're just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
humans." So
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of funny, but it's such an interesting place. So what I found out by doing, especially going to the Monroe Institute, like there was one time where I forget what focus we were in. I went to, I was in this place and there was like these screens in front of me. And when I saw the screen, I had the option to swipe or to go in. And I went into one and I was flying around and it was like 8K. I mean, it was like more details, hyper realistic. It was insane. And I came out and then the next one I went in and it was claymation, completely claymation. And I went in and I'm exploring this claymation world. And it's so hyper realistic claymation. It was blowing my mind. Well, it gets crazier. So after this, we go to the debrief. And this is where, everyone goes and sits in their circle and you tell people, if you want to share like what your experience was, and we talk about it. And I shared, I was like, all right, I'm just going to share this. I'm going to sound crazy, but who cares? I was like, I went to a claymation world, and I shit you not, one of the guys in the room, he is an instructor there, but he wasn't instructing. He was just there as part of the group, but he is an actual instructor there. And he was like, I was there too. And he started describing the world and I described the world. We went to the same place at the same time. So where I thought I was just having this crazy trip, going to some weird, claymation world. And it's funny because like claymation worlds are seen by people that do DMT. They're seen by people that have LSD trips, that kind of stuff. So I thought I was like, I almost didn't share it because it was kind of crazy and kooky, and we're trying to be professional here and stuff, And one of the other guys was like freaking out. He's like, I was there too, and that really tripped me out because I was like, did I go to a place? You know what I mean? Like I went to a place, and this guy went to the place too, and we were both in the same place at the same time. This is a guy who's very credible. He wouldn't make this up. There'd be no reason for him to, and out because that reminded me of DMT, where people go to these places and they'll even run into other people that are on DMT trips too in the places, and they'll have like communication in DMT land and come back and tell people about it. And both of the people's experiences are the same. So what I would say is that if DMT kind of freaks you out, because it is intense and it's very short lived, it's only a few minutes, you can accomplish the same things with sound, just sound, non-invasive, and you really can. That's what's so crazy about things like Hemisync. But so DMT is crazy fascinating, and they're turning it into like a technology, and I'm very interested about the entire subject. But I think there's also more kind of natural, non-invasive ways to do it too.
Mm. Yeah, it really is a technology, isn't it? Because it's funny, like we think of technology like as, wires and nuts and bolts and rivets and metal and whatever. But it really does seem like some kind of bioorganic technology that when we like interface with it, it just seems to like transport you to somewhere else, which sounds crazy. And obviously, you know, for the uninitiated, the fact that this is going on in your mind, it's very easy for someone with a closed mind to just be like, oh, you're just hallucinating, oh, you're just imagining it. But when we're, you know, having Google come out with their Willow chip and like kind of openly saying like, oh, we think our Willow chip is traveling through the multiverse to solve problems, it's kind of like, okay, well, what is that? What does that mean? What does that mean for the people who are, you know, seeing all these crazy things on DMT or in deep meditation?
Yeah.
Have you did you see the episode of Danny Jones' podcast where he interviewed the guy Danny Gola, and he does the laser thing with DMT? Did you see that?
Mhm. Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
talks about the frog that like appeared and started teaching him to play guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah, I did.
that is like the most wild story. Like the way he's telling that story, and he's just like explaining how the frog is like showing him to like what the chord formation is on the guitar, and it's like
Yeah.
encouraging him to play it. Man, when he's telling that story, I'm just like, wow, like this is whatever that is like something powerful. Because I mean, I'm sure we'd all agree, like I'm sure the frog isn't there in 3D reality that we all share, but it
Mhm.
clearly, you can tell by the way he's telling his story, like it's there in his mind, and it's teaching him to play music, and it works. Like he didn't know
Yeah.
how to play guitar, and this frog is telling him, and it's working. Like that's I don't know, man, that just absolutely blows my mind. And that's why I think it's like it's kind of intimidating, right? Because you don't know what you're going to come across.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes you wonder how much of it is this world is so malleable, this reality, because it is a virtual reality. So, like, you know, it's very typical in the UFO abduction world for people to have like implanted screen memories where if say they were abducted and you know they had missing time and they're trying to make sense of it later and they're like, so I was driving down the road and I saw this giant owl on the side of the road and I pulled over and then there was two other owls and there was these three owls standing around me and then like an hour went by and I was back in my car and it's like, yeah, dude, that wasn't an owl. You know what I mean? Like that was a gray alien that abducted you. They stitched out that part of time and then they replaced the image of them with an owl. So it just goes to show, and that happens all the time. And it goes to show like how much of our memories can be manipulated, our consciousness can be manipulated because when we're in this simulator, it's digital, it's virtual, it's not, it's rigid. There's rule sets, you know, it's very, you know, it's very physical. But when you really dig down deep inside of everything, you realize nothing's really physical. Everything is waves and energy, and a higher intelligence or something that has advanced technology or capabilities or whatever can manipulate that, you know, maybe not on a mass scale, but definitely on an individual personal scale. So that frog that Danny was seeing might not have been a frog. Maybe that's just what his consciousness saw. And who knows, maybe that was his higher self doing that. Maybe it was some other intelligence. He says that most of this whole journey he's been on has been guided, you know, him finding the laser and thinking about how to do that and all that has all been guided, you know. So there's
Mm,
some body helping him, you know, which is probably him helping him, either a future him or a higher him helping him. Yeah, and the dog is just, or the frog is some sort of a screen memory, you
yeah.
know, some sort of a visual representation of something.
Yeah, just something for him to be able to like visually perceive whatever he's communicating with.
Yeah,
What what do you think about that? Like the fact that people are looking into these lasers and seeing these hieroglyphic like characters that they describe as being like, you know, the matrix code, like the code weaving together reality. But then at the same time, we seem to have these like recovered craft that people say have very similar hieroglyphics on. We have hieroglyphics in, you know, the most astounding buildings in the world, like the pyramid, well, not in the pyramids, but around that area. Um, what do you think that is? Do you think like this is like the language of like the creator, or where does that come
yeah.
from?
You know, it's interesting, man, because like there's what that Enochian language, what they say is like the language of the angels. It's super interesting, super fascinating, and people have seen it on like UFOs. They've seen it on all sorts of things. They call it hieroglyphics, but it's not hieroglyphics. It's
It's
this
similar.
similar, yeah. It's this
Yeah.
Enochian language that's ancient, and so why is that on all these things? You know, is there some sort of a core language, some sort of a fundamental language that when you strip away everything, cultural biases and indoctrinations and all of the things that we've been taught and everything, like if you were to reset civilization, humanity back to just two people, Adam and Eve, and kind of reran it, would they start speaking some natural language? Would they start writing some natural language? It's interesting because like our language came from somewhere. We have roots somewhere. Most of our language is, Latin, Greek, Hebrew, but before that it was Babylonian, Assyrian, Sumerian, and the Sumerian text, is very advanced. And the Sumerian text is just nothing but these like up and down, lines. It looks like binary, like it almost looks like code, like zeros and ones.
Mm.
And so when you like kind of take everything back to its root, everything is very binary. It's very computational. It seems like we're in some sort of a gigantic organic quantum computer. And so maybe this Enochian language is kind of like the fundamental language. Maybe it's the primary
Like
language.
like the binary code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we've just kind of stacked layers and layers on top of it over the eons. And now we have these complex languages like English that don't make any freaking sense. We have like four words
Well,
that are like wood. What kind of wood? This wood or that wood? Or what? It's like we've overcomplicated everything because that's what we do. But when you pull everything back and you rip all the layers off, maybe there is a core language, and maybe that's what we're seeing on these things. And maybe it's a universal language. Maybe there's other entities that aren't on Earth that use that language. I wouldn't be surprised, if that was the case.
Before we move on to the next one, because I want to show that video that you reposted and I reposted, that was just incredible. But I want to ask you, just while we talk about other intelligences, what is just your quick take on actual physical non-human beings? Do you believe that they are here and have always been here somewhere, maybe living like, under the sea or in the mountains? Or do you think they are potentially not from Earth? Or do you think they're not actually physical at all?
I would say yes, and yes. So I think it's everything. And that's not like a cop-out. I think that there are advanced ancient humans that live on Earth, or more specifically in Earth, that are probably remnants of before the last cataclysm. I think that there is a cyclical cataclysm, like a reset, that the simulator has. And that's kind of beyond proven. So I think that happens. Now, I've actually done a lot of deep dives on actually what causes it. And I think it has to do with the switch of the Yugo. And there's this thing called the wobble of Earth, the Great Year, and it's the precession. And whenever it hits one side like a pendulum and swings back, I think it creates a pole shift, and I think that resets civilization. And it seems like if you just look at ancient cultures, that there's an advanced race of beings that come along, and they know when this is happening. They're looking at everything from a much wider perspective. They know when it's going to happen, and they come and they restart civilizations. They have those handbags, you call them the Anunnaki, call them whatever you want. There definitely seems to be a ruling class of higher intelligent beings that are human-like, but probably not human, that live on this Earth. And we would call them aliens. We would call them Nordics or Atlanteans or whatever we want to call them. They seem to be here. The two most commonly reported UFOs, or I guess alien encounters, are the Greys and the Nordics by far, based on official MUFON data. So this is backed up by many, many, many people that have had encounters with Nordics. And what they always say is that they come most of the time from out of the oceans, out of volcanoes, out of caves, out of the Earth. They don't come down from the atmosphere. They seem to be here. Some prominent people, Hal Puthoff, Dr. Michael Masters, different people. There's that book called Ultra Terrestrials. Forget the guy that wrote it. It's a great book. Deep dives on this. Hal Puthoff did a whole white paper, really deep diving on the ultra terrestrial hypothesis. And he goes into multiple different hypotheses. He doesn't say that's the one, but he puts a lot of weight on the fact that there's a very good chance that there's beings that live inside of our Earth that are ancient and very intelligent and human-like. Okay, so we call those aliens, but they're probably not. They're probably from Earth, which is why they don't want us to blow the place up. Makes sense. Now, that's one thing. Now, also, the same way this is a physical simulator for consciousness development, there's a whole bunch of these in the universe. There's a whole bunch of Earth-type places with physical avatars. Can those physical avatars get from where they are to here. I think everything is spread out on purpose as part of the grand design so that we don't interact with each other too much, so that we can stay in our own little lane and we can learn and grow here. Because if we were constantly having aliens come, it would mess up a lot of things. I think that that part's managed and controlled. I don't think they're supposed to come here physically. I don't know if they're capable of coming here physically. Maybe wormholes. I think there might be these kind of super highways, these physical wormholes that connect physical planets. So it's possible. Are they coming here in UFOs and crashing? I don't know. That's such a weird concept, and there's no physical evidence, even though people swear there is. No one's ever seen anything. I've seen UFOs. Multiple. I could not tell you for 100% certainty, even though I'm 100% sure I've seen them, that they're physical. And it's such a weird thing to say, but that's just the truth. So I do believe that there are what we call aliens. I believe that there's physical, intelligent beings on other physical planets in the universe. I definitely believe that. Probably more than we would ever imagine. I just don't know if they come here physically. But I leave that open. Definitely possible. The only reason, it's not that I don't think that the technology exists or anything, because obviously you're talking about civilizations that could be 1 billion years, more developed than us, right? Their technology would be magic to us. It's that I don't know if the designer, I don't know if the grand architect allows it, that part I'm not sure about. So, or at least they might try, and there might be some safeguards in place. And that's kind of what we've seen, is like attempts of them to do things. And then it's usually either they crash or they blink out or something happens, Now, quick caveat, the spheres that we see all over Earth, those are undeniable. There's a sphere network of these metallic spheres that are all over the Earth. I do believe that that's associated with the ultra-terrestrials that are inside the Earth. I think that's their,
surveillance or like some kind of monitoring system.
Exactly. That's the most likely scenario. Anytime you look at like old pictures of UFOs, when you get those real pictures, not the blurry shit we have today, but like real 35 millimeter pictures from back in the 60s and 70s and 80s of UFOs, everyone looks at the UFO because you see a picture of UFO, of course, you look at the UFO. But look deeper. Almost always, there's probably 3 spheres around the UFO. I have a whole album in my phone of just old 35 millimeter UFO pictures that I have circled all the spheres. So the sphere network is a real thing. We call those UFOs. We consider them alien. Guarantee you they're from inside the Earth. So that's something people don't want to talk about, because that makes people way more uncomfortable than talking about aliens.
Yeah, and it's funny, right? And this is something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I haven't quite been able to like express it how I would like, but it makes sense to me, right? Given that, the past and the future is just a concept, right? Like it doesn't actually exist as a physical place. The only time that exists is now, always. It's always only right now. So with that, like I think that if there was this advanced civilization, which from looking at all these pyramids around the world, it seems like there was, and there are these cyclical civilization resets, if they had the ability and the technology to kind of build these things that we can barely replicate today, to me that says, well, I mean, you've got like Derinkuyu as an example. We have found these like underground tunnel networks, and in not just Derinkuyu as well. There are like lots of evidence of these underground places that may have been somewhere to go when something happened on the surface of the Earth, right? So if there are these ancient civilizations out there that were capable of these extraordinary building feats, and we've also discovered these underground networks where they could have survived, it feels like no one's actually saying, okay, so what if they did survive, right? So the networks were there. They're clearly good builders. That seems like they probably survived. Where are they now? Like, why, I feel like there is a good chance that they are these, like you said, these ancient advanced cultures are probably still here, but with the technology that they must have had to, cut stone so precisely, these massive granite blocks, which were not built by the Egyptians. I cannot agree with that. It seems like it's actually far more probable that they perhaps realized how inhospitable the surface of the Earth is, and that it's actually much safer to like live inside, and perhaps with that advanced technology that they had, found ways to kind of just sustain and live with a maybe not like a free energy source, but like they found a way to just live and survive far more comfortably underground, under the ocean. I don't know. Like, to me, that kind of makes a lot more sense, especially given that we're also seeing these advanced craft that seem to have the similar writing to the civilization that built these amazing things. Like, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
think they got wiped out. I think it's far more likely that they are still here, just not, they're not living in Florida. They're not living in New York.
Yeah. I mean, it's not even illogical. It's sort of illogical to discount it. And then think about this, like the most likely cataclysmic event that would have been this sort of level, this extinction level event, would have been about 12,500 years ago, during the whole Younger Dryas event. And so think about our progress over the last, say, 200 years. I mean, we've gone from horse-drawn carriage to,
Crazy.
we're talking about putting civilization on Mars now, right? In 200 years, 200 freaking years. Think about 50 years. So think about if a civilization went unimpeded for 13,000 years. Think about what they would be like. It's insane. So a lot of these UFOs we're seeing zipping around, the Tic Tacs, that kind of stuff, the Sphere Network, I'm fairly convinced, 90% sure that that's coming from a breakaway civilization inside the Earth, that they're actually, managing our surface as best they can. There's reports of the sphere shooting down, nuclear warheads and stuff like that. They're keeping an eye on things, which they should. They share this place. But we're just not. People say, okay, why don't they come out and say hi to us? Why don't they land on the White House lawn or whatever? It's like, well, we're all batshit crazy. This place, would you do that? Especially when we probably outnumber them 8 billion to maybe if I had to guess, there's like 500, 1,000, 5,000. You're talking small numbers, right? These are going to be more of your engineer, scientist type people. Like, think about if there was a cataclysm coming, who would survive? It would be Elon Musk and his rich elite people, right? It's those type of people.
Yeah.
They have no interest in coming up here with the surface level humans and just being friends, right? No interest at all. They're going to manage things and control things in the shadows, with their technology. And that's what we see. That's exactly what we see. So I think that's happening. I think that's always been there. And that's a big part of everything. When people talk about disclosures coming, I think that if we get at like a consciousness level on the surface to some sort of a parity with them, where we're at least capable of holding a conversation, or at least capable of comprehending who they are and our history and that kind of stuff. If there is some sort of a cataclysm upcoming and they know this, they might put out an olive branch. They might see that, okay, they're close. They're at a point where we can communicate and we need to work together on something. That's why I think we're seeing the level of disclosure we're seeing, is because I don't think we're worried about an alien invasion or anything like that. I think that there might be a time in our future where we're forced to have a face-to-face with our roommates. You know what I mean? And I think they're kind of getting us ready for that. If I had to guess.
Seems like it.
Yeah. And I think that's good and bad. It's good because, hopefully we'll get some answers about our history, because obviously our history has been completely fabricated. But the bad thing is, I don't think that would happen if it wasn't necessary. Like if there wasn't something coming that we had to be told about, warned about, or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe they just, like, they evolved too, so it's like when you have a kid, that your kid, for the most part of its, like, childhood, you're not gonna be able to really communicate too much with or do too much with, because they're a kid. But then they get to a certain point, they turn 18 or something, like, hey, we can go out, we can hang out and stuff. Maybe they look at us the same way, where they're like, hey, maybe they're going to get to a point where we can actually come and like hang out with them, and we don't have to worry about them throwing us in a freaking weird military laboratory and doing experiments on us and stuff, So, and I really think a lot of these people, a lot of them are a part of our society. I mean, you hear all these people that are really, really high up talk about they walk amongst us and that there's these hybrids and this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't think that they're just passively hiding inside the earth and whatever. I think that they're an active part of our surface level.
I would agree with that. I think I've kind of got two different theories about this, and I feel like both could even be true in some ways. But I think I think humans, like, we inherently love to not just kind of create, but also reiterate and make better. It's like what we do. like dogs are inherently like they hunt, they can smell things out, they'll go and find it. That's what dogs do. I feel like humans, we kind of like build, we make something, and then we want to make a new version of it, and then we want to do it again, and we making better and better and better. I feel like there's a possibility that we are like a builder race or a creator race, and we are utilized to do that, to make things for something that is above us, just like we use dogs to help us hunt, or we used to. Now we use them just to be cuddly little friends. Or my other theory is that, and I think this has kind of been talked about before by other people, and I've done a video on it, kind of like this techno-terrestrial theory. Diana Pasolka talks about it a little bit, about that the technology curve that we've seen that kind of kicked off, around the 40s. Ever since then, the tech has just gone like crazy. That it's like some kind of technology-based intelligence is like seeding Earth for us to kind of build it into 3D reality, kind of, and through AI. So we're basically creating these AI systems, and by doing that, we are going to, there is people talking about how we're going to merge with AI and become this like meta-human or transhuman. That's the way, Neuralink, that's the way things are going. But like what that actually is like that technology that kind of appeared here. People like Tim Taylor say these craft are gifts. We hear things like that, like a Rubik's Cube to like stimulate humanity's like brain and our advancement. And that, once we kind of get further enough and we build this AI and then we kind of merge with it, now suddenly like we are becoming one with this like foreign technological intelligence. And I think that, Diana Pasolka says that the elusive Tim Taylor believes that we are going to become them through technology, which is like the most ominous and like not talked about enough quote I've ever heard. But they are kind of like two theories that I think could even be like both right, or maybe something like that. But at the very least, I agree that it seems like there is some other higher intelligence that is orchestrating what is happening, but like not directly. You know what I mean? Like it's not hands-on, but it is orchestrating what's happening down here. And we can't do anything about it. We are just on the train tracks, just like put your seatbelt on because it's happening.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. And you're right. I mean, every being, dog, fish, bird, humans, every being has a kind of a specialty. They're designed in a particular way. And we have these little fingers, they're great at making tools, and our eyes can focus. We can see up close. We can problem solve like mothers. I mean, we're so good at figuring out solutions to things. And we're great workers. I mean, think about our society. I mean, everyone gets up in the morning and hops in their car and just, like zombies, just goes to work, and they don't even know why. They don't even know what the hell, they're just going. We are perfectly groomed to build things. And I've thought about that, like, all of our militaries, 8 billion strong people. Most of us are very heavily armed. All of our militaries have massive missiles aimed at the sky. We have space lasers now. I mean, like if you were a inner Earth, these Nordics, they kind of seem like autistic. They're very sort of shy, antisocial. They're in there, if they're like, hey, let's put these surface people to work. Like, let's make them useful. We're not going to go out there and fight. They seem to be pretty passive. They seem to be pretty, nice, gentle people, but they're also smart. They know that the cosmos probably has some not nice folks. And you have us. We're like we're the grunt, we're the infantry on the surface, it would be a great first line of defense. So that's definitely a possibility. Hopefully that's not it, but could be. And then the whole AI thing. I mean, Rudolf Steiner talks about like Ahriman, and how Ahriman, if you know anything about Steiner, he's just brilliant, doesn't get near enough credit for his work. But Rudolf Steiner a long time ago talked about basically there's three forces that control Earth, and you have Lucifer, Jesus, and Ahriman. And this isn't religious stuff, but his stuff is way deep and very profound, and it's very relevant now. He was so far ahead of his time. But he talked about Lucifer essentially is a pendulum going one way, and Lucifer is the bringer of light. It's basically when you're disconnected from reality and you're too much into non-physical, into spirituality and head in the clouds. Jesus was the balance in the middle that brought the two sides together. And then Ahriman was coming in the future, 21st century, around now. Ahriman is the opposite. Pure materialism, disconnected from source, no light, and needs us to build his body, needs us to bring him into this physical, reality. And I've often thought about that, because when you read Steiner, he's so smart, he's so prophetic, and he describes perfectly the age that we're living in right now. And Ahriman at that point would need us to build his body. And if you think about what we're doing with AI, you have all these genius people, all these engineers, all the people that are working on AI that are building it. They know it's a bad idea. They know that we're recklessly just driving 100 miles an hour with a freaking concrete block on the gas pedal and cut the brake lines. They know what we're doing, and they can't stop it. They know it. And that, to me, that's weird. It's weird that these really smart people seem to be doing these careless things that they don't even fully understand, that now it's almost like AI is taking on life of its own and it's driving the car. And it makes you wonder, like, is this Ahriman building his body? I don't know. But these are things that at least should be talked about.
Yeah.
And then when you meet,
I
like,
think.
go ahead.
Sorry, you go. You go.
Just to put a bow on it, like the Greys. So, like, I said earlier, the two most reported alien encounters, at least in America, that data is the Nordics and the Greys. And the Greys, when people experience them, almost always say they seem robotic, that they seem sort of, I don't want to say soulless, because I don't know, but like they just seem robotic. And that there's reports, some people say they're future versions of us or whatever, but the whole point is that they seem to have a technological aspect to them, that they're sort of like bio robots. And they seem to be hive-minded. They don't seem to have an individual consciousness, and they're very infatuated with us, very interested in us, almost as if, hypothetically, they lost their connection to source, and they're trying to reverse engineer us to find out what that missing link is, or how to get their spark back. I don't know, but they definitely seem to be very interested in hybridizing us with them, and they definitely seem to have like an AI robotic type aspect to them. And I just think it's really interesting that all that's happening at the same time. We're coming up on this whole AI singularity, and there just seems to be a convergence of things. And it'd be silly not to think that somehow those are related. I just don't know exactly how.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you hear that they almost seem like there's no empathy, and they just operate like a hive mind, like they're operating from like a single brain, which is super interesting, especially considering all of the crazy AI stuff that, like you said, all the people building AI are like, this is kind of crazy. Kind of seems like it's sentient. We should probably stop, but we just like can't, or we don't. It's like like I said, we're just on this path, perhaps because it's being orchestrated by something that we aren't even aware of. Like who really knows? But
Well, there definitely seems to be like programs for our simulator that we have free will. So we have free will to kind of do whatever. So you're playing a video game. You go into a level of the video game. You can run and jump. You can go look for the hidden coins. You can do whatever you want. But there is a set level. There's a level design. There's going to be a boss at a certain point. There's going to be a fire pit at a certain point. You can't control those variables, but you can control how you react. You can control if you jump over them or fall into them or whatever. I think our reality is kind of the same way. It's engineered. It's programmed to an extent, and we have free will to navigate it and to learn, as we go. But I think there's things that happen, and so maybe there are these set trajectories. Maybe because the human avatar, me and you, we've evolved a lot over millions of years. Earth's been here for 3 billion, 4 billion years, and the human has only been here for maybe 1 million. So we're pretty new. And in that time, we've had some dramatic transformations. I mean, we've significantly evolved and changed. And now we're changing very fast, like, exponentially fast compared to before. So, I mean, it would make sense to think that, in a few hundred or a few thousand years, we're going to be a completely different being than we are now. Like, that's just, that's common sense. You'd look at history, Dr. Michael Masters did this when he saw Whitley Strieber's book Communion, and he saw the gray alien face on it. And he's a anthropologist and a biologist or something. He has a unique background and expertise where he studies the evolution of the human body and human form. And when he saw that gray alien, he said, whoa, that's a future human. Like, he just knew immediately. He was like, he could tell by the features and everything. And it set him on this whole path. And he's had a wild story and journeys. He's had all sorts of experiences and everything. He's a very interesting guy. But he immediately saw that face and thought, that's a future human. So I think that there will be a metamorphosis of the human being at some point, and I think that's just going to happen. And maybe these beings that are coming back in time are sort of like timeline hopping. Maybe they're coming back to this point before the metamorphosis. Maybe they're trying to change things or tweak things. Maybe it didn't go so well. Maybe they're trying to edit the timelines. I don't know. I'm very convinced, especially after reading Dr. Michael Master stuff, that a lot of the Greys are future beings and that they are descendants of us in some way, and that they're coming back to tweak things, to change things for better outcomes. That's what it seems like. And we can't wrap our heads around that because we think of time as linear and we don't think you can do that. But, with UFOs, I mean, we've realized that, there's like a fabric of gravity, more or less, and that when you manipulate gravity, you manipulate time because it's the space-time continuum. They're both intrinsically linked. So you can't manipulate one without the other. So as we build, anti-gravity or gravity manipulation devices and stuff, which essentially a UFO or a flying saucer is, it manipulates time. It just has to. I don't see physically how it can't. So a time machine, I think, is almost inevitable, and I think that's one of the biggest reasons why there's such a lid on ufology and stuff, is because we can't have everybody just playing with time. You know what I mean? I think that's a very dangerous thing. But I think these beings do play with time.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think, what's your opinion on Die Glocke? You think the Germans might have had a time machine? What do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, they were all into this stuff, man. They were all about it. And they knew about the inner Earth beings. I mean, I don't want to get into too much of the alternate history stuff, but I mean, there's the Aryans that he was looking for, that they were trying to find with the whole Anunnurbe, the Thule Society and all that kind of stuff. They were looking for a very specific people, and the people they were looking for were inside the Earth, and they had this advanced technology and magical powers and all this kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure they were looking for the Nordics. I'm pretty sure they went to Antarctica, and did all that stuff there. I mean, the Admiral Byrd stuff and all. I mean, there's a lot of really weird things that happened after the war that paint a picture that they had some technology, some advanced, anti-gravity type technology that they tried to get out of Germany, and they took it somewhere. I don't know if they went to Argentina. I don't know if they went to Antarctica. I don't know if they went inside the Earth. I don't know what they did with it, but if that was in the 40s and they were already manipulating gravity successfully, I mean, we're 80 years later. I mean, who knows, And I mean, think with Operation Paperclip, so many of those guys came to America, and then we formed NSA, CIA, NASA, all that stuff after all that. So we're almost like Germany 2.0. So a lot of that technology could just be underground here, I mean,
100%.
They might not have had to hide it anywhere. It's here.
Yeah,
we are there,
I know. I think we're on the exact same wavelength with that one. But I am conscious of time, and I wanted to pull this video up. So, guys, if anyone follows myself or Jordan on X, you may have seen this. We're going to watch about 3 minutes. This whole clip goes for about 9 minutes, but it's 3 minutes is enough. Basically, this kid is in hospital. He's just had a skateboarding accident, and I guess he's probably under some kind of anesthetic, but he's conscious and his eyes are wide open. And he's basically having like a very spiritual experience. And from watching the video, his father is deceased, and he seems to like have some sort of contact and communication with him and with what he perceives as Jesus. So we're going to watch this, and then we're going to talk about it because it is just a wild clip.
Sorry. Why? I'm a bad kid.
No, you're not. You're not a bad kid,
I cause trouble.
No, you don't. You just skateboard.
I love my mom. I miss my mom. Where's my mom?
I'm right here.
I miss my mom.
I'm right here, Kason. Kason.
Hi, Jesus. You're so beautiful.
He's in a dream. He's dreaming.
It's a puke bag. It's over now.
I want this hot chicken.
I think your mama will get you some. Yeah.
Jesus, when you coming back? We need you. I need you.
Oh my God.
I miss you, Jesus. I miss you. Dad, you're so pretty. Hi, Dad. Do you see me skateboarding?
His dad passed away a year ago. Oh my God.
You're so pretty. You're so pretty.
It's okay.
Mom loves you, Dad. She tells you all the time. I love Mom and Mom loves you, Dad. I love Mom. My mom's the best. She's the best mom ever.
You're heavier with the car seat. You're doing so good, Kason.
That's not my name.
Huh?
My name is Brian.
My name is Brian.
Hi, Dad.
Okay, Brian.
You're so beautiful. Oh, you're so beautiful. You have so beautiful hair. Dad, you're so beautiful. I can't wait to see you. Can you give me a hug? Dad, I'm sorry, Dad. I'll treat Mom better. I'll try. I'll listen. I promise. Yeah, I promise.
Wild, dude. Like, I mean, that's not even half of the clip, but that kid is like, to see a child of that age, he looks probably under 10 years old, speaking with like such introspection, like he's out of his body almost. He's apologizing for like not being a good kid. Like he's having this kind of like, I don't know what you call it, but it's like he's almost like a life review, right? Mm-hmm. And then he's talking to his dad, and then he says that like, Kayson's not my name. My name's Brian. Yeah. Like, is this kid like remembering a past life or something? What's your take on what you're seeing there?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. I mean, it really seems like, because when you watch him at the beginning, his eyes are kind of down, sort of towards his mom. And then all of a sudden his eyes get real big, and he looks up. And when they get big and he looks up, that's when he starts talking to Jesus and his dad. And it's almost like at that point, everything shifted. And it's like his body is just in real time kind of relaying what his spirit is seeing. And it's just like an open line to the spirit world. And when he's talking about his dad and to his dad and talking about Jesus, and he's talking about how beautiful and this kind of stuff, I mean, that's very common in near-death experiences for them to describe the other side as being so beautiful and full of light and colors that they've never seen on earth. And it's just this like almost like magical, reality. And it's hard for us to compute it. And that's why he just keeps saying, you're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. That's the only word we can really say is, we can't put it into words. And that's why a lot of people, when they have near-death experiences, I've talked to so many people, and a lot of times they don't even want to tell their story because they can't put it into words. They're like, I can't do it justice. It's not going to make any sense. It's like when you have a really crazy dream and you try to tell someone, it sounds stupid. It's like our words don't work. We don't have words for the things they see. And you can see it in this kid's face. He's like overwhelmed. And obviously he came out of surgery, so he's on some narcotics, but he's very clear. he's speaking clearly. And when he said that that's not my name, that was amazing because like at that point, he's not identifying with his physical body anymore. At that point, he's identifying with his non-physical body, his higher self. And I would love to see him do a past life regression and see if maybe his past life he was Brian, or even maybe go to his higher self and ask what the significance of Brian is. Maybe there has to be some significance there. But at that point, he's no longer identifying. He even said he said something about his mom, like not being there or something. And she was like, I'm right here. Like he was no longer identifying
Yes.
Dad as his mother. And he was not identifying Kaysen as his name.
Yeah. Yeah. He says like, I want my mom, but it's his
Yeah.
mom seems to be the one who's actually filming it, which is, yeah. I mean, imagine from her perspective, that would have been quite like maybe a bit confronting or just extremely wild. I think later in the video, when he starts talking to like Jesus more, he's speaking to Jesus and he says like, your eyes are like fire, like
Mhm.
just some crazy stuff for a child to say.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, yeah, he's obviously on some kind of anesthetics or whatever. But again, you can't fake that. Like, yes, it might be an experience that's happening in his mind, but that doesn't mean it's not real, right? It's just because it's
Yeah.
not in 3D reality. This kid is clearly experiencing something, and the fact that it aligns with so many other experiences in similar situations around the world, there's clearly some kind of like spiritual connection going on there.
Yeah. I mean, like I explained with SoulSync, I mean, you are tethered to your higher self. So you have a spiritual essence and you have, your physical body, and you're sharing space in this physical body. So your physical body has its own consciousness, it has its own wants and needs and to-dos. Like when you're out of your physical body, it still will go on and survive, right? I mean, I was out of my physical body, and my physical body was still, it would go to the bathroom and do everything it needs to do. It doesn't need me in there to do that. It's fully autonomous. And then we go into that body and we add this layer of consciousness and creativity and intuition and instinct and that kind of stuff. So it's like a merger. It's like a sync. And so at this point, his body's laying there and it's still alive. It's doing its thing. But at that point, his consciousness had gone to the other side. His consciousness was on the soul side, and his body's just sort of at this point like an open line. It's just reporting what it sees essentially on the other side, because the drugs, the sedatives at this point, have just relaxed his nervous system, relaxed that filter that normally would filter that stuff out, and it has relaxed that enough to where it's just reporting what he's
It's just
what he's
raw
experiencing. Yeah,
data.
just raw data, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and his body is doing the best it can to try to put it into words, but
Yes.
it's hard to do. That's why when he said Jesus had fire eyes, that wasn't fire like in some sort of like demonic way. It's just his eyes must have just been so piercing and so
Hmm.
vibrant and so powerful and intense that fire is the closest thing you can think of. He's trying his best to put it into words.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what we hear in like, ancient UFO sightings, right? Like
Mhm.
flaming Roman shields and, chariots in the sky. Like it's just trying to explain something that you don't know how to kind of perceive or explain. I wanted to ask you about higher self and kind of meditation as well. Like, do you find that when you're in meditation, when you're in these deep kind of meditative states, you you obviously have like your own stream of conscious thought in your mind at all times. Like right now, we can think in our head, and that's our conscious thoughts. When you get into these kind of deep meditation states, do you find that you seem to get, and the best way I can explain it is thought that you didn't create,
Oh yeah.
like a download perhaps?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that's like your higher self, kind of like a guiding voice? Because that's something that I've experienced is where in meditation, and sometimes not even in meditation, just in like really relaxed moments, I will get like ideas or concepts in my mind that, first of all, I didn't think about, like I didn't formulate the thought process to put them there. It just kind of appears, but it appears as like literally like a zip file. It's like the whole thing is there and then I have to consciously unpack it, and I have to think about it. But it's like it was delivered whole. That's the
Yeah.
best way I can explain it. Because it's like I didn't create this thought; it just kind of is there, and now I'm thinking about how does that work? But it's like, well, how did it get there in the first place? Because I didn't think of it. Do
Yeah.
you like? Does that ring any bells for you, or like how would you interpret what I'm experiencing there?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it happens to me all the time. I mean, that's just a traditional download. That's the only way you can really explain it. And I've pulled on this thread quite a bit because I've had several of them, and I've wanted to know where they come from. And so, do you know who Ishtok Bentov is, or have you ever heard of him? Ishtok Bentov.
Yes. Yeah.
He was a scientist, a mystic. He wrote a couple books. Stalking the Wild Pendulum is one of the best books ever written. He described thoughts, and he was way ahead of his time. The best way I can describe where thoughts come from. So imagine you have like a thought bubble above your head, and the thought bubble is mostly your thoughts. Okay, what do you need to do today? What's going on tomorrow? When's your flight? All these things. Those are your personal thoughts in your thought bubble, and they're just floating around up there. They don't all need to be brought down, but when you want one, you can retrieve it, you bring it down, and your brain acts as like an amplifier, and it amplifies that thought, and then it brings it into your mind. Okay, boom, there's that thought. Let's analyze it. Now, that thought bubble is usually your thoughts, but information can come in there from other places. Your higher self can place things into your thought bubble. Other sources, people can place things in your thought bubble if they know what they're doing. That happens. So, but more on a more positive note, your higher self can place things into your thought bubble. Your future self can place things in your past thought bubble. It's an exercise that you can actually do to sort of like you can give your past self information that you need now, and it will help it come into your reality stream. So in this thought bubble, it's just information, and you pull the information down in your brain amplifies that thought and turns it into a thought. It's just information before. So that's how Ishtok Bentov describes essentially how thoughts work. Now, in that case, remember, your higher self is like, think about it like a team. Your higher self's like the coach, and you're a player in the game. So it's going to let you do your thing. It's a free will simulator. It's not there to tell you what to do. It's just there to guide you and nudge you in the right direction. If it impeded on your free will, then you wouldn't learn anything. But your higher self can help. It can assist, and it does. And one of the ways it assists is it can put information into your thought bubble. I'm just using these as like kind of visual metaphors. But when it does that, you have the free will to grab that and bring it down and amplify it and turn it into a thought. You have the free will to unpack, unzip that zip file and do something with it. You don't have to, you're not forced to, but it's helping you, it's guiding you and guiding you along. So more than likely, if you get a download like that, that's coming from your higher self. That's information that it thinks at this point in time and this point in your life, you need that information, but it's still your free will, whether you're going to unpack it and what you're going to do with it. But that's how I see downloads coming is typically from you, from a higher version of you.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that, like some kind of like a coach, like a guiding force. But the thing is, though, like I feel like, well, I mean, we can only ever speak from our own perspective, I guess, but I feel like I've always had those little thoughts, but it took me a long time to kind of recognize them, if that makes sense, like recognize them for what they were.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that comes down to meditation, right? Is like once you quiet your mind, you kind of becomes clearer, like what thoughts are yours and what are not, which ones were kind of placed there as maybe like a little nudge or a guide rather than just your own overactive mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll have like my wife is very empathic, and she picks up on other people's thoughts. And when she's in, a very busy place or around a lot of people, she can pick up on other people's thoughts, and it becomes overwhelming. And she's gotten really good over the years of putting up a protective bubble, and she can shield herself from other people's thoughts because their thought bubbles overlap with her thought bubbles, and she can actually. I mean, that's how telepathy works. It's how people can read people's minds and that kind of stuff. It's just you're putting your thought bubble and like you're basically overlapping like a Venn diagram, your thought bubbles, and pulling in information from someone else's field. And if you're very empathic, if you're very sensitive to that kind of stuff, then you can get all sorts of stuff from other people, and it can be overwhelming. So you have to really discern and have to get good at figuring out what are your thoughts, what are other people's thoughts, what are negative thoughts that are just kind of human thoughts, like just things that are there, like different parts of your personality that are trying to keep you safe and alive, but they're maybe are out of whack, they're out of balance. That's why we have these negative thoughts. It's usually a part of your psyche that's trying to protect you. So it says things like, don't do that, don't go there, don't talk, but it can get out of balance. So you have to talk to those like a team, like a coach, hey, I appreciate your help, but let's quiet down. So sometimes those thoughts come from yourself, just different parts of your psyche. Sometimes they're other people's thoughts. Sometimes they're planted there. Sometimes it's your higher self. There's all types of things. And then a lot of it's just data input. Like you're picking up thoughts subconsciously from other places and you don't realize it. So that's where meditation, you're closing out all that. If you're not around other people, you don't have to worry about other people's thoughts. If you close your eyes and you meditate, you don't have to worry about sensory input. And then you can really figure out, okay, what are my thoughts and what are other thoughts? And you can feel, it's just an intuition. You can kind of feel how it resonates. Does this feel like it's from me? Does this feel positive? And you'll kind of learn how to color and label things the more you just practice.
Do you think that's how like channeling works? Like I really like to listen, I don't listen to him all the time, but like I like to listen to Bashar. I think he's cool. I think the things he sort of teaches, his lessons are really valuable. Do you think that's how that works? Like kind of shifting your own conscious thought stream aside and just like letting whatever else is there filter through, and is that what channeling is?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, if you think about like a radio, and you put it on one station, and you're listening to that station, it's crystal clear. If you get a little off that station, it's kind of fuzzy, you start picking up another station, you turn to the other station, now it's clear. Think about channeling that same way. Like you're on your station, it's very crystal clear, but you can change that dial and pick up a different station. And sometimes the other intelligences will go ahead and turn your dial so that you're picking up their station and they can use you as an instrument and channel through you. Sometimes it's not up to you, it's up to them. Sometimes they do it. Sometimes it is up to you. And then sometimes like Bashar, someone like that's a channeler, they just know the frequency of the being that they're channeling. So there's an intelligence that they share like a frequency with, that they're connected with, and they just feel it. They're like, okay, so-and-so wants to come through me now, and they shift their own dial. Boop, now so-and-so is coming through them, So that's all that would be. We're just receivers. We're typically receivers for our conscious signal, but it doesn't mean that we're only receivers for our conscious signal,
Yeah, I agree. I have a big sort of unclear, but like a strong belief that like creativity is like very interesting. Like where like muses and where do our ideas and art that seem to kind of direct and influence society, it seems to come from a very interesting place. Like obviously the Simpsons are a classic one. The Simpsons predicted all this stuff, but it really does seem like so much of our pop culture does inadvertently actually shape society, or things that have been in movies from like 20 or 30 years ago seem to like manifest in reality like later down the track, especially in like the realm of sci-fi and things like that. So it makes you wonder, like, are we kind of like pulling these ideas from like our higher selves that live in a realm where time isn't linear and they can see the past and the future, and these things are just already known, like the concept of like laser beams back when Star Wars or Star Trek came out, like stuff like that, right? It's really interesting. Like, is it chicken or the egg? It's like, it's an interesting one. I wanted to ask you just
one time real quick.
Go ahead.
That one of the biggest things that our higher self brings into this fusion, right? So it's a physical, non-physical fusion that we are. One of the biggest things our higher self brings in, the non-physical part, are the three I's, and it's intuition. I forgot the other I. Intuition and imagination. I'll think of it as soon as I stop trying. Anyways,
intelligence.
It's not that, but good guess. So it's intuition, imagination, and something else. But anyways, the imagination part is what I was going to highlight. That that the physical body its main thing, it's the ego. Its main thing is survival. Its main thing is to survive and thrive. That's what it wants to do. It has skill sets. It wants to work. It wants to do labor. It wants to survive. It wants to find family and reproduce, that kind of stuff. That's what the physical body wants to do. The higher self is it really likes, it lives in an imagination space. I mean, everything in the astral, everything in the spirit side is all imagination, and everything works at the speed of thought, and everything is very, it's all done by mind. It's all mental. It's all, intention. That was the other eye, intention. So anyways, so the higher self loves imagination. It loves creativity. And one of the things it loves doing when it's in a human body, because it can't do these things on the other side, is the creative stuff, making music, strumming a guitar, playing drums, painting a picture, writing poetry, that kind of shit. That's what your higher self comes here for. That's what it loves to do. That's what it wants to do. So people that sit in a cubicle all day, people that don't have any sort of artistic expression at all, will usually have crazy anxiety. They'll usually, feel disconnected from their body, all sorts of stuff, because your higher self is not getting to do the thing it really wants to do. So you have to, that's what I really teach people in Soul Sync, is figure out what your physical body wants and give it to it. Figure out what your higher self wants and give it to it. When you make up both of those seen, then they're really happy. It's like two roommates in a house and they love each other. When you don't, there's animosity and things get weird. So your higher self loves creativity and imagination, anything having to do with creativity. So that's why we are such creative beings. And that's why, we'll, like, higher selves will plant these seeds. That's why people will literally write the same book. Like, multiple people will write the book, like same book, at different places. You've probably heard of that. They'll invent the same thing. They'll write the same song, that kind of stuff. That's higher self wanting this to happen, planting this. It's not done in some manipulation way or whatever, because a lot of these books don't mean anything. They're not important. They're just literature. People will write a book and it'll literally be called something, and someone else over here on different side of the earth has no contact with the other person and will write the same book, same characters, same everything. That's a higher self wanting that to be done. Those two humans are probably sharing the same higher self. And like, that's just that higher self wanting to express that. It happens with music all the time. It happens with movies all the time. It's usually creative endeavors. So that's coming from upstairs. So it's trying to express itself. It's like, hey, we only have a certain amount of time in this physical body. Let's do some cool shit. Let's write some songs. Let's paint some pictures. Let's do the stuff that you can't do out there.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And just, I think what you said there before about the fact that, people who are just in a cubicle all day and who aren't like having a creative outlet, I think whatever it may be for it's different for everybody, is so important. And this saying that I really like that resonates with me is that the opposite of depression is expression, and that everyone needs to just have something, even for some people, it might just be like doing a jigsaw puzzle or something, something basic, where other people, it might be painting a giant mural, everyone's different, but just having that expression, I think, is just key to happiness, 100%.
Totally. I mean, it might be the way you dress. It might be, some people get a bunch of tattoos. Some people do it. Like, there's a million ways to express yourself. It's not about, you don't have to be an
100%.
artist. There's a million ways to express yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's expression, not necessarily like art, for sure.
Yeah.
So to finish off, I did want to hear about Soul Sync. So this is a company of yours that you've got. Can you tell us kind of what it is and what the goal is?
Yeah. So really, it's a framework that I'm creating, just a learning system. Right now, it's in course form. It's going to be coming out next week. So it's not out right now. I'm beta testing right now, and the results, reviews, what we're going to call it, or people are loving it. It's amazing. It's really, really cool. I've been working on this for 5 years. It was my way to make sense of what I was going through, to make sense of what the physical body was and what the higher self was. So I call it human self and higher self, and how they come together. And it's very, very, very evident to me now, and I have tons of proof, and I lay it all out in the course, that we are this fusion of two things. So you are a physical body that serves as an avatar, as a vehicle, and it has its own feelings and emotions, and it has its own wants and needs. And depending on where and when you're born, it's kind of designed to do particular things, particular trades, and have particular ways to move around this world. And once you identify all that and you scan that and you figure out who you really are, what your physical body really is, then you start giving it all those things. And then you figure out how you're supposed to operate in this world. You get like a user manual for your physical body. Then you also have to realize that you're a higher self. You're a stream of consciousness that is using this physical body as an avatar, as a vehicle. So we do all this different exercises that figure out what your higher self, what your mission was, what your pre-incarnation to-do list was for this particular lifetime. And then we figure that out, right? So now we're connecting to our higher self, we're talking to them, we know what it came here to do. Then there's these layers. We figure out that you have your original design and you have your original mission, but life happens. And life accumulates these certain layers. There's 5 distinct layers of overlays that have been put on top of your original design and your original mission through the course of your life. And now we have to identify those and peel those back to get to your original default settings. And when you do that, then we do this recalibration exercise that syncs everything back together. And we try to get you back to your default settings where you were at the beginning. You know, your body is now seen. You know how to operate in this world. Your spirit has been talked to. You know what your mission is. You now have defined what your true purpose is on Earth, and you put together this plan, an action plan. So you come away from the course with all this true understanding of who you really are on all levels, and an exact action plan moving forward to actually accomplish what your purpose is here on Earth. And that's what SoulSync is, and that's what I've been working on, and I think it's super cool.
Dude, it sounds awesome. I think it's something that is actually important. I think it could help a lot of people as well, especially in these crazy times that we're in. And I'd definitely love to check it out. So there's links for that on your website, or is it
Yeah.
not up yet because it's not launched?
It's not up yet. So I have a waiting list. You can join the email waiting list, and I hope to have it out. I'm putting the finishing touches on it right now. Super excited about it. It's got guided meditations. It's got workbooks. It's got tons of information, but it's all cataloged and coordinated in a very organized way that's really easy. So if you're an advanced person, you've been doing this your whole life and you know everything about everything, you're still going to benefit greatly. If you are fresh out of the gates and don't know shit about shit, you'll benefit greatly. It is made for every single soul on Earth. And it doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, and nothing. So I put a lot of time and effort into crafting it in a way to where it will benefit everybody, and it's really easy to do. So you can join my wait list at digijordan.com. I have other courses, and I wrote a book, and I have all sorts of other stuff, but this is the one I've been spending a lot of my time on. And I've spent years just learning, experimenting, exploring, to really make this as complete as possible. This is not something I just threw together. This is something I created for myself, and then I spent a lot of time turning it into something that other people can use as well.
Wow, man. Yeah. And I think that's just such a great contribution that you've done. It does sound like you've really put your heart and soul into it. And one of our mods has actually just put the link for that in the chat as well. So go and check that out, guys. Is there anything else you wanted to maybe let people know about, or where they can find you, or anything else before we finish up?
No, I mean, I'm pretty much everywhere. I'm probably most active I do a daily TikTok walk and talk. That's how most people know me. But I'm on X a lot too. I think that's how we connected. And, and all my links are on my website. So, you can follow me around. I try to be as responsive and active as possible and engage everybody. I'm trying to get more on YouTube. I'm terrible on YouTube right now, but that's the next thing that I'm doing. I'm gonna start focusing on my YouTube. But yeah, right now X and TikTok are probably my 2 biggest ones. But yeah, come follow along, and I try to be as diverse as possible. I talk about everything. I am unfiltered. I try not to hurt anyone's feelings, but I say whatever I'm thinking, and so beware.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, guys, if you're a fan of my channel, I think you'll definitely be a fan of Jordan's, because I think we're very similar. We love all the weird stuff, and we're just kind of say it how it is, an open book. And thank you for being here, man. We've had a pretty long show, 2 hours. I really appreciate giving me that much of your time. Like I said, I'm a fan, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of yours too. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing an amazing job, man. So it's perfect timing. So you're starting to freeze up now. So I think that's the universe closing the curtain on us. This was a lot of fun, John. And really, you are one of my favorites, man. Every time I see that you have a new video, I always stop and watch it. So I'm happy you asked me to be here, and I hope to do another one someday.
Yeah, for sure, man. I would love to do another one, and let's definitely stay in touch.
Absolutely.
All righty, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you all for being here, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you all.
Eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy. Everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.